Hello, beautiful soul family. How are you? I haven't seen you in a minute and I apologize. I have been places where Wi-Fi just wasn't available and it's been awesome. But I'm back. Welcome to the channel. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that this is a trajectory, a very, very transparent channel. And as I've gone through my ascension journey, I have done my very best to try and share the accomplishments and also share the trials that we've learned from. So recently, it really downloaded into me that the importance of people understanding their dharma be discussed, because there's a misconception due to timeline manipulation that we are still in an age where karma is ruling, and that has actually been put to rest. So I want to go over this. It's kind of deep. It's kind of dense. You might have to watch this a time or two. I've really tried to break it down as best I can. And I will tell you up front, a lot of this came, my first exposure to this information was through a conversation with a being that in real life, human form, embodied the soul that was the same soul of Krishna and Poseidon and King Solomon and Kublai Khan, and had lots of memories of those lives. So along my ascension journey, I realized that that the soul that I have is a best friend to this being that I just mentioned. And so in many of his lives, I'm actually divine masculine. Although I chose to come to this life as female and I will remain female. I was his best friend in many lives. So a lot of his accounts and memories that he shared with me was so that I had a better understanding of who I was. So that's how it came about. And it came about because we were doing a lot of energy work to help humanity. We were trying to right a lot of wrongs. And we were working based on downloaded information that came straight from Mother Sophia and Source Creator. And so a lot of what I'm going to discuss, the discussion actually took place last September. A lot of the energy work actually took place last September. But as you may or may not know, energy work takes some time to integrate into the physical form. So it has to come down into and it filters through. And that can't really be rushed, but it is inevitable. So once the energy is put out there, the energy can't be destroyed, right? It can be transmuted, transformed, but it can't be destroyed. And the energy work that we did was and is protected. So let's get into what is Dharma and how is that different from karma, and what should we take into the future for us. The fifth dimension future is whatever I always refer to. If you're watching me, you're on the ascension journey. You're on the path, and it's a lot of information, and I didn't know any of it. When I started, I knew I knew a very little bit. I didn't give myself credit for knowing really any of it. It's been such a learning curve, a very, very steep learning curve. But I encourage anyone who is there and they feel like, my gosh, there's so much to learn. How am I going to get it? You just got to start. You just got to pick something that piques your interest and start digging into it and see how it resonates in your soul. You got to really sit your mind in the back seat, because your mind's going to talk you out of the magic that has transpired and is transpiring right before our eyes. And it's been there the whole time, but we've just been conditioned to talk ourselves out of it. So you really want to tell your ego to zip it and have a back seat and really see what this information leads you to. Does it resonate? Do you feel like maybe you were alive Maybe this is a life that you shared as well. Lots of people are realizing that exact thing, because as our souls all volunteered to come down here and help humanity, we have, as a soul family, decided to do this work together, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So the more that you kind of dig into that, then the more you're opening yourself up to your truth coming into you, and you can decide for yourself what really resonates. How does this change or not change your perspective on things? Is this something that you kind of felt like you always knew, but you weren't sure why, or even you never really dipped your toe into that lake? So also, before I forget, happy 777 portal. Please, if you're inclined to do so, take a moment, set your intentions. This is a time of new beginnings, a time to manifest our highest and best timeline. Sit with yourself, turn off the outside chaos, and kind of envision in the most minute detail of what your highest and best life looks like. Give yourself that time, 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever you feel like doing. Call on your spirit team to help you manifest that and make it a reality. The energies coming in are geared to do just that. But if you don't have the vision, and if you don't put forth any energy, you're really just missing that opportunity. So I hope you take some time to really envision your highest and best timeline on the 777 portal, which is today. That window is going to be open for a while, so hours, not months or weeks. Okay, karma. A lot of people refer to karma as cause and effect, and it is. Karma is an action that can be either good or bad, and there, with that decision and that action, there's a reaction. There, with that action, there's a consequence. So Dharma is a moral direction for karma to bear fruit. So that's basically saying, if you're a good intention person, that's your moral direction. You're going to prevail in your decision making because you're in alignment to source. Hopefully you consult your higher self and you have conversations with your spirit team, and that is your guidance for your actions, which is then your karma. Now, Dharma fulfills a life duty. That's the Dharma and karma really come from the Indian and Hindu cultures, and it is in their very, very old text. And so I don't have my memories of my lives there, but I did have lives there. And so this is very simplified. It gets very deep. There's a lot of research that one person can do. So Hindu and India have ascension cycle that they refer to as the chart of the yugas. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of backstory, and then I'm going to get back to the chart of the yugas. Karma represents the actions and the consequences, okay, which draws us toward happiness. It's a framework of cause and effect. It's a framework. So if you're consistently choosing to make your decisions based on what benefits yourself, without any regard to anything around on the periphery, okay, you're just self-focused, and whatever happens to anyone around you because of your decisions is a non-consequence to you. That's how you believe it. That is your framework for your life. That falls under, gosh, what pops into my head is we reap what we sow. So if you really feel like you're able to make decisions and then follow through on the actions, and the consequences of those actions are not going to be, a negative action would be bring a negative consequence to you. If you feel like that negative action may affect other people, but it won't affect you. That is building the framework for your life. Okay, so you're going to constantly have negative bombs, arrows slung at you because you're basically sending that out to the universe. That is the energy that you're sending out. It's very low vibrational to be self-centered and in service to self and not be concerned with your brothers and sisters. So Dharma is the right or correct action, that which draws us toward our perfect happiness. So that is when we are in alignment to source. That is whenever we are in communication with our spirit team and we're honoring our soul contracts. We're honoring source creator's guidance, and we are consistently making self-corrections back in alignment to source creator. According to Lord Krishna, now Lord Krishna in Hindu lore is the same soul being that I spoke of earlier. Same soul as Poseidon, same soul as King Solomon, same soul as Kublai Khan. And I invite you to recognize that many of his incarnations were negative polarity. Most of my incarnations with him in those lives were negative, or served as negative polarity lesson time for us, right? Long ago, we had to understand what the negative polarity lives meant in order to understand the beauty and the blessings of a positive polarity life. So the other thing that I want to point out is that those beings, those souls, were very powerful. In each incarnation, there are multiple counts, historical accounts of very important battles that were won. Monumental events took place in the culture, and it was really driven by this being's Dharma. Okay. Negative polarity or positive polarity, whatever you want to look at, however you want to look at it, it's still, those lifetimes were integral in our history. Dharma is for the soul, not for the body. Dharma is learned from our understanding of our gnosis, right? And our communication with our higher self and the communication to source God creator. When the lessons that come from God source by way of our soul contracts, the goal is to keep the soul as clean as possible. Now, if you have a negative polarity soul contract, you're not going to be keeping your soul very clean, but you're going to be creating the opportunity for many, many lessons from that. Now, it's not really a Wild West show when it comes to someone being in negative polarity. Like, there are people that are inherently selfish, but they don't cause overt harm. Like, because you're a selfish person doesn't automatically make you a murderer, right? So, but it also doesn't exactly line you up to source creator either, because you're out for your own best good and your intentions are not good for the collective. You don't care. It's not a concern. And so I've had people say before, like, are there better sins to commit than others? And the first step in trying to answer that question is to understand that the definition of sin has been manipulated over time to benefit a narrative, to keep people in shame, guilt, fear mentality, victim mentality. The Yahshua's definition of sin is that we veer off course, we lose our way. There's never a dead end there unless you create it. There's never a point where it's ever been said, you can't come back from getting turned around, right? That is a manipulation of the text. there to make people feel like they could actually commit a sin that can never be forgiven, because that's not accurate. Okay. When God, source creator, and loves all of his children equally, the love that we get whenever we veer off course and we fight our way back to him is as profound and complete as it is whenever we've been right at his feet the entire time. Okay, there's not a delineation there. The love that we feel is truly the same warm, all-encompassing, limitless love that we would have if we never veered off course. And so please don't believe that because you may have had a life where you made some mistakes. We all have made mistakes. We have to make mistakes in order to grow. It doesn't mean that you're not looked upon the same by your Father, Mother, God, because you are. The only people that use that manipulation of judgment, blame, and all those things are people that are not in alignment with the source creator. They are functioning on a very low vibratory frequency, and that is not the frequency of ascension. So the best thing to do is have a conversation with yourself in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, I know you did some things that were not for the greatest good. I know you made some choices that were really all about you, but now you see how that makes people feel, and see how it makes you feel. Now, I love you and I forgive you. And the love that we have waiting for us when we forgive ourselves from Father, Mother, God is enormous, because that's the goal. Not to hold grudges, not to live in fear, shame, blame, guilt, pain, none of that. But to truly, compassionately care about our own soul and our own evolution as much as we do anyone else. That's the goal. So I encourage you to shut out the noise, turn inward, and start with the inner child, because that's where the gold is. Like, that's where you really find your faith and your footing and who you are and what is important to you, not what society says should be important to you. So this is another reason I think that the truth about souls and the truth about soul contracts and all of the intricacies and nuances of souls was hidden from us, right? Because if we knew, well, they wouldn't have as much control over us, would they? So Lord Krishna proved that wicked tendencies and immoral acts have to be punished. And the only thing that man can preserve is the Dharma. And what do I mean by that? Well, the same soul being, like I said, was Poseidon. Poseidon's actions set off a series of events in their immorality that caused the fall of Atlantis. The fall of Atlantis was a frequency fall. Immoral acts bred low vibrational flesh indulgences, we'll say. And that caused for a ripple effect through the collective, and the frequency of Atlantis was no longer high enough to sustain that dimension, and it fell. Now, I have many, many downloads and things that I truly believe about Atlantis, but I won't go into that right now. But I'm just justifying this statement. The same soul that's Poseidon is the same soul Krishna, same soul as Solomon, same soul as they all had wicked tendencies and immoral acts in those incarnations. Okay? Dharma is the idea that everyone has a purpose, soul contract. Every individual has a predestined duty. And in that case, in the case of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's duty was to fight as a warrior. Now, this was really part of the conversation that we had last year. I discovered who my soul was, that soul lineage and that relationship to that soul being that was Poseidon, and that we were best friends. And then we incarnated in multiple lives together. And usually I was like that best friend, that first lieutenant, that first officer in many battles. When Lord Krishna is having this conversation with Arjuna, that's my soul, Arjuna. Arjuna's soul is the same as Lord Venus, King Hiram of Tyr, and multiple other lives. Okay? So those beings in those lives were learning and soul contracting to live and incarnate in those lives together. And it's been that way since inception. Okay? Very old souls. So Krishna informs Arjuna it's his duty and encourages him to continue in the battle. Arjuna doesn't want to because the opposition is family. However, the opposition has been very violent and evil and has destroyed the peace of their community, of their nation. So that's the dilemma for Arjuna, that he doesn't want to fight because it's family. So Arjuna's duty, the Dharma to fight, is his societal role. It's his expectation to stop the violence and bring the country back to peace is also his expectation. Krishna justifies the fighting in the war by teaching Arjuna about the difference between the soul and the body. So there's a limited knowledge even in that time, but Lord Krishna has memories of his past lives and has higher dimensional knowledge about souls and the role that our soul contract plays in our day-to-day life. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, it is pushed to the forefront because Arjuna is very and doesn't want to incur any karma from harming family members, even though the family are acting out violence against the people that are innocent. So Krishna urges and convinces Arjuna that it is his dharma to fight a righteous war, even if it comes with painful consequences, which Krishna claims that trepidation, that pause, comes from a lack of knowledge of the truth of the soul and the body. So back to the chart of the yugas. It's called the cycle of global consciousness. It's a 24,000-year life cycle of Earth and a 12,000-year ascension cycle. So you would ascend for over 12,000 years and then descend over 12,000 years and then ascend over 12,000 years. Now, Kali Yuga is where we have been for a long time. Kali Yuga was supposed to be the consciousness period that started 700 BC and then was to end in 1700 AD. But there was some manipulation there. So during the time of Kali Yuga, you had Joshua, Patanjali, Plato, the rise of Greece, Da Vinci, the rise of Islam, fall of the Gupta dynasty, fall of Western Roman Empire, Isaac Newton, and Einstein. Now, what was supposed to start at 1700 AD and go forward was a time period of Dwarpa that was supposed to last for 2,400 years, known as an electrical age. Then that was to be followed by Treta for 3,600 years, and that's known as the mental age. Now, some of the timeline manipulation, I confirmed all this with Source Creator. Don't take my word for it. Do your research, do your clearings, have communication with true source creator when you're clear, you can confirm all this too. The timeline manipulation that was done by the Cabal folded Dwarpa and Treta over onto Kali Yuga, and that has been prolonged. It's been this 3-tiered level of really service self. And the electrical age and the mental age, which pushes you further and further away from source and further toward negative AI. So we discovered this, when I say we, the human being that embodied the soul of Poseidon, King Solomon, and Krishna, all these beings. We worked on elevating humanity and removing a lot of the evil blockages energetically, because we really were like, we've worked on in multiple lives. This is exactly how the conversation went. And please, this is my truth and I'm going to share it. As I learned who I was as Lord Delphinus and the soul imprint of Lord Delphinus in this body, I realized, which I already knew on some level, that I had lived many lives, and that I came here in this body, in this form, for a bigger purpose than to just be Nicole. Okay. And to just be the label that I had been given in life. So we started to contemplate, what can we do? We are these highly evolved souls, light beings for the greater good, all 100%. What can we do? Because we've had these negative polarity lives, but not this life. This life is a positive polarity life that we volunteered to come back to for and help elevate humanity. This is our time to flip the script. This is our time to come in and right some wrongs. Did we have anything to do with some of these wrongs? Yeah, some of our incarnations were negative polarities. It's called a soul contract. We honored the soul contract. We're rewarded by source creator because we didn't bow out. We didn't say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. We honored it. We learned the lessons and our soul evolved. Every incarnation we had was not negative polarity. But the ones that we had to do, we were rewarded for seeing them through to completion. It's no different than Queen Elizabeth, who honored her soul contract to live as a split soul with a Draco overlord, because she did not end that early. She saw it through to the end. Her original soul, the soul of that woman, that little girl, really was rewarded with crossing over to the light. She's a light being. What she had to do in this lifetime was not good, by and large, but she honored her soul contract. It's the same thing. So we really have to not be judgmental on people that have so at the time, we were discussing what we could do energetically to help change things, change the course of some bad trajectories, and that we really wanted to end if we could. And so we said, he brought up, because he having the Krishna knowledge, he was able to just tell me about Arjuna and about the Bhagavad Gita and about the moral of the story, basically, and said, you are the Arjuna, the story, and we can work together to help end the violence and the evil. And so a lot of power, mostly on his part at that time, because I was newly activated, was used, and those older non-serving timelines were ended. So this was last year. We started Satya Yuga. Now, the dates and times have been manipulated by both sides, I really honestly believe. But it's not something you can go, well, those years don't add up, because we've seen structural evidence of the time, the year stamp change. We don't know whether it's 1,000 years or what's been added to it. So I ask you not to focus on the dates and then that kind of thing. It's more of the event. So Satya Yuga is a truth age, where the other three were electrical age, mental age, and service to self. Satya Yuga is the truth age, rebirth, new beginnings of higher consciousness. So, like I said before, there were a lot of timeline manipulation happening, mostly by the dark side. And it was to their benefit. The longer that we were able to be kept under this negative AI agenda and the electrical and mental agenda that keeps you really feeling like you're have to focus on your work and focus on yourself, and everybody around you may be doing other things. It doesn't matter as long as you focus on yourself. That's what's going to lead to success. So you're pushed away from unity consciousness, right? So whenever you look at the similarities of the chart of the yugas, which is their cycle of global consciousness, and what we know as the ascension timeline, where we raise in our frequency, aligning to Christ consciousness and more unity consciousness as our frequencies rise, they correlate. And so the timelines have to correlate. Now, those that don't choose to align with source creator, they're aligning with third dimensional earth. They're not in the ascension group. So that will be their reality. Okay, that's the difference. It stays in that like darker dimension. It stays in that service to self mentality for a while. And all the beings still have free will choice and can choose to elevate and raise their frequency and find their way over to the fifth dimensional frequency and fifth dimensional new earth, Hunamatea. So there is where we draw the line. Okay, so I think to understand our Dharma is really like understanding your soul contract. To understand that both those things exist, really, no matter what culture you're in, is motivation for me and confirmation that we're definitely on the right path. We're on that source guided path of light. So you will see that you gravitate toward more similar frequencies. You will be very uncomfortable with anyone of that lower frequency because it's no longer your actual reality. The frequencies actually dictate what you're able to hear and process. So that's why sometimes you'll be around someone in a store, public place, sometimes even family members, and you're having a conversation with them, or you're trying to, and they literally don't hear you because they're not in a frequency to receive your frequency. They're incompatible. So that is more proof that there's a divergence of the timelines there, right? From third dimensional earth and fifth dimensional earth. There's a large group of beings that are in that fourth dimensional, like gray area, and they have free will choice. They can go either direction. So, honoring our Dharma is just accepting and honoring our soul contract, understanding who we are on a soul level, speaking our truth, not hiding it away because there's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. This is exactly what we volunteered to come down here for. The more that we share the goodness, the motivation of the light, then that has a ripple effect through our common collective. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear are the ones that can receive that information. Don't really worry about it. Source told me this last year. Don't really worry about the words that you use. It's your frequency. It's the frequency that people respond to of the like frequency tones, right? So when you get up and out of that third dimensional thinking and feeling and frequency, you look at things differently. You process things differently. Your perspective changes. You're no longer feeling like you're in the fear, shame, blame mentality. You're no longer feeling like the clock and the calendar control everything that you do. You really feel more calm and peace and at ease because you're in alignment to source, and that's where we're supposed to be, calm and peaceful loving our brothers and sisters, unity consciousness, and the judgment and all that stuff falls to the wayside. Those are low vibrational feelings, and they don't exist in the fifth dimension because they're not compatible. So the rules of karma and Kali Yuga and all those other time events that were folded upon itself that were negative polarity have ended for the most part. And it's the light beings that no longer resonate with that. So understanding your soul contract, understanding that soul beings have a contract, that there is inner guidance to what they're supposed to be doing in this life and why we incarnated on this planet to begin with, helps make sense of the chaos, in my opinion. There's a whole lot to learn about each one of us. We all have a very unique path, and the trajectory is the same, right? We're all headed, those light beings are all headed to new earth and fifth dimensional earth, and the goodness that will come of that naturally, organically. Everyone has free will choice. I invite you to do your research and do your homework and sit with it and see how this resonates with you. Because again, like I said, there's a lot of information out there. And the old texts, the Bhagavad Gitas and things like that, really are very, very close to the original text. They haven't been manipulated as much as some of the like biblical texts. And I can't explain why that is, but that's just what I have seen. So I hope this helps clear up what the Dharma is and the role it plays in our day-to-day life, and how we've come out of that karmic age really fully. It's up to you to accept that and then live it in your highest and best timeline with your free will choice. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll talk to you guys later.